There is a word from the Lord on today. If you have your Bibles with you, or if you have a phone or an app or some type of device where you can slide with me into Psalms.
Yes.
107th Psalm. And once you stand all over the building, if you are able. Very familiar passage of scripture. I just want to look at the 107th Psalm. Brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha, you all did an amazing job.
Amen.
Thank you so much for coming.
Amen.
To our soloist who is here. Where is she? I see you. There you are. Beautiful. Thank you so much. 107th Psalm. Reading from the King James Version, it says it like this: "Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever." Verse 2 says it like this: "Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, whom he hath redeemed from the hand of the enemy." That's enough. You may be seated in the presence of our dear and gracious God. I want to preach for just a moment as a spiritual guide from this thought in mind: the response of the redeemed. The response of the redeemed. There's a question that I want to raise this morning, one that I believe is a very critical question in all of our lives. At any point, in any facet that you may live, you will at one time or another ask yourself this question. Pastor Mitchell, this question is there anything too hard for the Lord? This declaration has been announced time and time again by those who have come to the realization that there is indeed nothing too difficult for your God to handle. Like a parent who watches over their child, God has yet to fail those who call upon his name in times of despair and struggle. For it is the responsibility of your God to always take care of you. There is this an assurance that you have as God's child, that regardless of whatever you may go through in life, God will always be faithful to you. Even when you can't trace God, you can't trust God.
Yes.
When there seems to be no light at the end of the tunnel, you can rest assured that your God will always make himself known to you. And it is not like our God. Isn't it not like our God to be able to protect you from the disgrace of life? But not only that, but your God can and will redeem you from all of life's dark moments. Can I get a witness in here this morning? Your God will always bring recognition to his redemptive power. This notion of redemption is all a part of God's love as he is engaged in the act of saving his children from sin, from error, and from evil, to save his beloved offspring from that which is vile and evil in this world. Therefore, as a response to God's redeeming power, we offer to him praise for saving us from the emergencies of our lives. I am convinced that I'm not the only one in here who has experienced the grip of God's grace or seen his hand of mercy break literal and literal chains of that which may keep you bound in life. There is somebody in here seated on your row, seated in the seat you're sitting in right now, who has recently come to the realization that it won't nobody but the Lord who got me out of that one last time. It is evident to me that not only you and I, but also this psalmist here that we read about in the text, he knows that there is a thing or two about what it means to be freed from bondage, and because of this he shares what the response of the redeemed should be. The response that the psalmist has is a directive that starts off like this: "Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever." But I'm so glad, Imani, that that's not the end of the text, because then the psalmist follows up by declaring, "Let the redeemed of the Lord say so." He does not of the Lord ponder so. He does not declare, let the redeemed of the Lord think so. No, the psalmist emphatically declares that if you know that you know that you know that you know that the Lord saved you from someone, something, or some situation, you ought to say so. You with your grown self, you have no other choice. You with your grown self know that if you have been brought out of a reality that you could not have gotten yourself out of, then you have no other choice but to open up your mouth and tell the world, north, south, east, and west, that if it had not been for the Lord who was, help me finish this sermon right here. I'm going to preach it. Can I find about 9 people in here, and I'll make 10, and we'll have a good Holy Ghost party who don't mind telling God how grateful they are for the things that He's already done in their life. In spite of who you are, in spite of what you have done in the past, in spite of what you still may be doing, in His sight there has been at least one time in your life where you can look back over your life and testify that God had done the miraculous in your life. And I'm grateful. He redeemed you from the hand of the enemy. He redeemed you from the rocks and the locks and the snares. I see He looked beyond all of your faults and saw every one of your needs. He's a faithful prayer answering God. When I was sinking deep in sin, from the peaceful shore there, deeply stained within, seeking to rise no more pride, the master of the sea, He heard my despairing cry, and from the waters He lifted me, my son. So in light of all of these things, there is a contextual notion in the text that I want to raise. There's a question that I want to raise from all of us. As I was reading the text, I had this crazy idea, and I just want to share it with you all. The question that I have for us is raised off of this idea of where they were and what God did. So out of that tension, I had a thematic question from the text, and this is the question: how did you get to the point where you needed redemption? How? How did you get to the point where you needed to be saved? Jesus. Some might question whether or not that's a question even of importance to understand, but I want to share with you that in order to be completely set free from something, you have to at least acknowledge its origin. You should be aware of your own personal behavior so that you don't commit the same acts of treason over and over and over again. Let me put this plug in right here if you don't mind. You can't get mad with God because your life has not changed when you keep doing the same inappropriate behavior that dismisses God's love. That's that kind of stuff that Albert Einstein was talking about when he coined this idea of insanity, doing the same thing or practice of unproductive behavior but looking for productive results. Right. So before you totally write me off and start fumbling through your phone, I just want you to pay attention just for a little bit. Amen. We all gonna go leave from here and go get some fish. This Chick-fil-A is closed. And they ain't never ran out of chicken. So the first thing that the text teaches us is that how some of us needed redemption is because some of us wandered into this place of needing redemption. Early on in the text, there are categories of what some people did to get in the bind that they are currently in. Can I give you a brief lesson on how you ought to read the Psalms? When reading any psalm, you must take into consideration not only what the psalmist says, but also the way in which it is written. Psalms have a structure that can easily be taken out of context if they are broken from their joining verses. The power of any psalm structure lies in its verses and its refrain. In fact, this psalm that we are looking at this morning has a reverbing call and response, antiphonal response, where you should take good notice of it, because can I share it? It further supports our previous idea that anytime you call upon God, God will answer. So check out verses 6 through 9 with me. The psalmist says it like this: some wandered, you got your Bibles, look at your Bibles so you don't think I'm lying. Some wandered in desert wastelands, finding no way to a city where they could settle. They were hungry and thirsty, and their lives ebbed away. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. Yes. He led them by a straight way to a city where they could settle. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love, his wonderful deeds for mankind. For he satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. Right. The text says some wandered into desert wastelands, which gives us the idea of this first point of the sermon, that maybe some of us may have wandered into our own bondage. Could it be that not every issue that you have was put onto you by the enemy? There may be some moments when you wandered into a situation unbeknownst of the severe damage that it would cause. You knew it was wrong, but you didn't know how wrong it was going to be. But let us look at it a little bit more critically, because I don't want you to think that I'm saying that you got lost from a destination of where God wanted you to be, because there's a distinct difference between being lost and just wandering. According to this text, the people the psalmist referred to were seeking help of a homeland to call their own, and they couldn't find anything remotely close to what they stood in need of. So while they were moving along, they saw something that attracted their attention and were deceived into going into a place that eventually trapped them. Let me see if I can paint this picture a little bit better. You and I are walking along the pathway along this road right here, and we're tired and we're hungry and we're thirsty. We are lost because the pathway is clearly marked to be the safest place to travel. But while walking along this road, one of us in the group sees that what seems to be a shelter that has been set up as a place for us to gain rest and to renew our strength and nourishment. That one person in our group who initially saw the tent decides to veer off from the team to see what this place has to offer. Upon further inspection of this place off of the safe pathway, this person finds that this shelter is actually a cave, and inside of that cave is a pool of quicksand that immediately sucks our group mate in. And it was intentionally set up to look like a place of refuge when it really was a place of imprisonment. Our group mate is literally bound by something that they have no control over and are fighting for their life, all because they saw an oasis in the wilderness. And could it be that some of us have been deceived and hoodwinked into imprisonment because we became attracted to some stuff that we thought was going to satisfy our needs, but reality shows us that that stuff turned out to be a really scary place that we really don't think we can get out of, and now we are fighting to break free and get back on the right path. Let me see if I can come get you a little bit better. You thought that you were easing the stress associated with life by going to get a drink every once in a while, but what ended up happening was that you shackled yourself into a world in which you cannot properly function without a taste of alcohol. You thought that you were fixing your immediate financial constraints by getting that payday loan at an annual APR of 400%, but what you found out is that once you take that money, you are going to struggle for the rest of your life trying to pay it back, and here it is, years later, you are still trying to pay off a loan that you got back in 1992. You thought that you are satisfying your physical needs by spicing up your relationship by watching some pornography every once in a while, but in actuality, you kept feeding an appetite that will never be satisfied. Now you're chained to your computer and your phone, and anybody who is willing to lay fills the hungry with good things. You write this down if you got a pen. Don't settle for the oasis that seems like it can supply your needs. Rather, shoot for the God who sustains you through your need for satisfaction. Let me say that one more time because somebody's still looking like, huh? Okay, don't settle for the oasis that seems like it's supplying your needs. Rather, shoot for the God who sustains you through your need for satisfaction. So, first thing that the text teaches us that some of us wandered into. The second thing, and I'm going to take my seat, is that the text tells us that some people were placed into these moments. The text shows us that some of us were placed into them. They were prisoners. Verses 10 through 16 says they were prisoners who languished in darkness, securely imprisoned behind iron bars. Yes. They too cried out for deliverance, and deliverance does come even though they have sinned or rebelled against God's commands and despised the plans of the Most High. So in response to this, God subjects them to bitter labor. They stumbled. There was no one to help. In other words, they did not wander into these places. Neither did the enemy entrap them. But the text says that God sat them into them. They were placed into them. Can I help you understand, as I come to this close, that when you sin, God does not always give you the punishment that you think you will get. Like any good parent would do. In order to get you back on the right track, God has to sometimes shackle you down to get your cooperation. This ain't a plan of Satan or the devil to displace you. No. This is a response of God to discipline you. Rarely do we ever want to have to be saved from God. So let me help you understand that there is more than one reason God sent God's self down to this world. God realized that sin had entered into the world by our choice, and we needed to be saved from three things. If you're taking notes, here we are. First thing that we needed to be saved from was Satan. We needed to be saved from Satan. The enemy does this job well at offering to us opportunities to sin. He knows what our weaknesses are. He knows what our vices are. He knows what makes us tick, because he has studied God's creation and has vowed to make vengeance with God by stealing God's most prized possession, which is mankind. So without our consideration or warning, the devil or the enemy strategically sets up opportunities for you and I to scratch an itch that we might have. So the first thing that we're saved from is Satan. The second thing that we're saved from is ourselves. We are saved from me. We have the propensity to always want more. That's just how we operate. We are greedy individuals who are never satisfied with life. So we try to find things and situations to give us a chance to exercise our free will. So God created us to make the decisions to be righteous in our thinking, but because we are flawed, we choose to rebel against God's commands and despise God's plans, because God's plans may or may not always line up with what you want to do. Saved from Satan, we're saved from ourselves, but the third thing, we're saved from God. Saved from God's wrath. God's wrath is not a reality that we often see or talk about, because we are God's children, and God promised to never show that side of himself to us again. God's wrath causes rain for 40 days and 40 nights, wiping out all of humanity. God's wrath rains fire and brimstone from heaven, causing all of creation to go up in flames. God's wrath sends death angels sweeping through cities, causing death to whomever it chooses to touch. God's wrath is not what we want to see, but every once in a while, God's wrath puts us back to where we need to be. So instead of sending his wrath, God makes space for us to choose between righteousness and sin, so that he can sit us down in darkness and be prisoners in our own collective suffering. And he does this so that we can do like verse 13 says, and cry out to the Lord in our trouble. But the good news of the text is this morning is that your God loves you so much that even when the shadows of this present moment look like they are forming to prosper, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is some grace that will grip you. There is a balm to heal this moment, for the Bible says, when I call upon him, he will come from him. The Bible says, if I seek him, he will be found. If I knock, then the door will be open, because I can be confident in this, that he that has begun a good work in you, he shall perform it until the day of Jesus Christ's return. And I'm wondering if I can find 3 or 4 people in here who can declare over this life that this present suffering is not worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed in all of us, and that you know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. So therefore, what can we say in response to all of these things? I need somebody to testify right here. If God be for me, who can be against me? And that while he is for me, nothing shall separate me from his love, neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither present nor the future, neither any powers, neither height nor depth, neither either anything else in creation will be able to separate me from the love of God in Christ Jesus. And is there anybody in this place that can testify that God is right on time and redeems us at our most valuable moments? Is there anybody in this place that can testify that God has a way of looking beyond all of your faults and seeing every one of your needs, but the biggest need that you'll need is to be closer to him? So sometimes he has to pull you out of some mess that you put yourself in, and it's all because you were already dirty when he found you, but he was so good to you that he was able to clean you up right where you were. I was driving the other day, and I'm going to take my seat. I was driving the other day, and I saw this sign sitting out in front of these houses, and it said, we buy ugly houses. We buy ugly houses. We buy ugly houses. And I was wondering to myself, why in the world would someone want to buy an ugly house? I mean, who in their right mind would want to buy or live in an ugly house? This perplexed me, Marty, because until I found out that an investment company specialized in purchasing unsightly houses that needed repair. Once purchased, the company then will take their resources and work on the houses until they are transformed into beautiful and desirable homes. And I'm so glad that one Friday, that my Jesus looked at me from his cross and he saw an ugly being. But that's not what he just did. He did not just look at the ugly being, but he died on that cross for over 30 days, for over 2,000 years ago. On that old rugged cross, he died for our sins. He died for you and for me. And essentially over the top of his head was it said, we blind ugly people. And is there anybody in here that can help me
Thank you, God.
God has a way of pulling you out of stuff.
Yes, my God.
Lord have mercy.
Yes, he does. Hallelujah.
Keep putting yourself in.
Yeah.
Thank you, God.
Say,
The interesting thing is that he does this because he loves you. You have to,
Thank you.
you have something that you have to do. You have to accomplish in this life. You have a purpose, and he's not going to allow you to mess up the purpose just because you have plans of your own.
That's right.
We have a propensity to do these things just because we feel like we're invincible. But let me shed some light on that. You're not.
That's right. Amen.
We're not. We are finite beings, and
oh, Jesus.
every time we get ourselves into some more mess, God has to redeem us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's good news to somebody.
Yes. Hallelujah.
I encourage you, my brother, my sister, as you go into another week of work or school or wherever you may be, always remember that you're redeemed.
Amen.